really am grateful for your time and the space that we are creating here today, and for this moment, and for all of you. So I really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Before we begin, I would like to just take a moment to bring us and center us into the space. I'd like us to just get comfortable in the seat that we're in. Take a moment to truly be here. Close your eyes. Gently relax your shoulders. Roll your neck. Inhale, lift your shoulders. Exhale, release your shoulders. Roll them back and forth. Bring consciousness into your body through your breath. Bring yourself into this space, into this moment. Shake your body and release anything that you might have brought into the space with you. Anything that does not serve you in this space, that might distract you, that might hold you in a different mindset during this time. Release it, and gently all together, I'd like us to take a deep inhale through our nose, Inhale all the way. When you get to the top of the breath, I want you to exhale through your mouth, gently and controlled. When you get to the bottom of your breath, I want you to feel yourself build up the air and inhale from the lower part of your lungs, and feel the lungs fill and expand as your rib cage grows, as you collect all your breath and you get to the top of the breath as if it's the deepest breath you've taken all day, and you hold it for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4, and gentle, controlled exhale, release through the mouth. Slowly, skillfully emptying your lungs of air, gently feeling as they compress and tighten. As you get to the bottom of your breath, hold for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4, and deep inhale. Fill your lungs one last time with air, bringing power, bringing masculine, bringing control, bringing strength into your body, bringing this life force of air in, and hold at the top for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4, and as you exhale, release, surrender, welcoming the feminine, trust, knowing that there will be another breath, there will always be another moment. You can release this one and let it go. Gently relax your shoulders after the exhale. Feel as the seat that you are in is holding you. Feel as your body is gently connecting you to this moment in time, to this space, to this surrounding. I'm grateful for you to be here, and I'm excited for us to start. Thank you so much for joining. Welcome to the masterclass of the masculine and feminine, where we are one, we are connected, we are here. It is now. I'm so grateful for every single one of you. As I've mentioned, I think this is a beautiful space and a powerful space to welcome in everything that has been screaming at us from so many different angles, and to bring an identity to the masked figures that we once misunderstood. So with that, I'd like to introduce this masterclass by simply defining the objectives. To start off, the intention behind this masterclass is to share what has been shown to me, to you. It's to assist you in recreating the story of the masculine and the feminine, and to bring back that fire within you by waking up this divinity within you. It is a powerful, powerful path that we are about to partake in, not only because of the archetypes themselves, but also because of the power that they bring into the space by truly acknowledging when the masculine is toxic and when it is healed, and vice versa for the feminine. In this hour, I will be sharing the story of the yin and yang, our toxic understanding of the masculine and feminine, and how to identify and realign the flow of each within you. I'll also be introducing different shamanic tools and practices to rebalance that inner world that we have. If we understand, which I will get into as we go on, but if we understand the outer world as the masculine, the outer world as the things around us that affect us, the things around us that have a hold on us, whether it be the emotions, the energies, they all play an outward role on us. And as we create, and as I'll go into the outward masculine and feminine, we are also working on the inner world where all of that is present within us as well. I am just going to carry on and release. Of course, there is so much excitement and a little bit of nerves from me, and I'm just going to give that to the space. I'm sure if any of you were to hold a masterclass, or if you have already, I'm sure you would feel the same way. But above all else, I honestly just feel like an excited little puppy sharing this information, being heard by you. So I really appreciate your patience and for holding the space in this way. So thank you so much. I am going to be sharing the understanding of this inner world with you at a later stage. In realigning the masculine and feminine, my main intention here is to reconnect you to your true self, to help you feel safe in your body. The main intention with this is to bring you back into your body, to feel grounded within your space, to identify when you may not be feeling all there and all centered within your body, and how to recognize your vessel as a beautiful, wild, and powerful vessel that it is. A lot of what we are doing in this space and the idea of the masculine and feminine is in fact to recreate the alignment of the mind, body, and spirit connection. In so doing, a lot of the masculine and a lot of what we do in this practice that I will share later on has a lot to do with the body. The masculine, that outward energy, that outer world that I mentioned earlier, is very much centered in the body. It is with this body that we are grounded in this space. It is with this body that we are presently here. So it's very important that this body and all that he or she has to share with us is heard and appreciated. I'd actually love to share quotes by Alana Fairchild. She goes very deep into the masculine and feminine, and she's been one of my mentors in the space. She says the amazing outcome of healing the divine masculine and feminine within us is that peace, inner courage, and a willingness to embrace on our life journey starts manifesting. And we can create, we can grow, we can become with no limitations, but rather moving from our heart space, moving out of our mind space, our head space, and moving into our heart space, working from love, working with love, knowing that we have that deeper understanding and that deeper connection of what all of this truly means and what our true role and intention for being here can be, and how profound that is. I'd like to ask one of my favorite questions that I ask at my men's and women's circles to begin. What is your favorite thing about being a man or a woman? It can be anything. It's just something that brings you into alignment with who you are and why you are, and brings you into a space of gratitude. The women are empathetic and compassionate. That's exactly it. Nail on the head, Tyler. The idea of opening the space and allowing you the opportunity to identify and be in the space of feeling. In the women's circle specifically, women share how grateful they are to be women, to share how open they are, how empathetic they are, how emotional they can be, how they identify these emotions, how they are community driven. Men love their leadership, their hardworking energy. They love their cooperation with each other in a healthy space. They love their protective nature. They love having that willpower, that determination. There's so much drive in the man, and there's so much force in the woman, that together they hold so much power. There are many different cultures where the importance of the masculine and feminine balance is taught, and it goes back years, millennia. From, of course, being Greek, I am going to be sharing the Greek mythology. The masculine and feminine, as I mentioned, was shared as the sun and the moon. They were shared as brother and sister. And in a lot of different stories, the brother and the sister had these characteristics. The sun, our masculine, providing us with warmth, with light, with strength, with protection, powering our days, shining outward and sharing openly. Whereas the feminine, the moon, the evening, was more seen as bringing light into darkness, should I say, contributing to our emotions and our inner current, our inner flow. Whereas if you think of the sun and moon as the masculine and feminine, the sun is directly related and called in as the brother. Ilios is his name. With this being said, however, the masculine and the feminine do not hold any gender superiority or preferences. You can be a man with a high feminine and you can be a female with a high masculine. They just, in these mythologies and in these stories, the way that they understood them and the way that they do tend to connect is through these cyclical natures that I will go into at a later masterclass. This one specifically, I'm going to focus more on the characteristics as well as the identity of each character trait. My favorite stories for the masculine and feminine is the story of the yin and yang. The yin and yang, and the story of the yin and yang goes as follows. There were two cities. These two cities were quite far apart from one another. The yin, which there is the feminine, was the overcast weather, the moon, the cloudy, the negative. It was never sunny in yin land because of the lack of specific elements like the masculine sunlight. It actually got difficult for the people to live there, and so too for the city of Yang, where there was too much masculine, there was too much male principle, there wasn't any empathy or compassion in the space because it was powered by the sun, the masculine. The kings of each of the cities went to their wisdom keepers and asked them for help and guidance on what to do because their cities were falling apart. Wisdom keepers of both places entered deep into ceremony the one night only to pack their bags, throw their bag over their shoulder and just walk in the opposite direction towards each other without realizing. Until one day they walked in enough space that they could see one another, and in the space was the perfect temperatures, the perfect way of living, the perfect living environments for the people who were suffering before. So they went back to their land with this knowledge and they shared the information. They welcomed in both cities to live equally and in balance in the yin and yang that they had created. This trust, this balance of the weather, of the moon with the sun, the male with the female, all of these charges having the opportunity to balance again and form the yin and yang. This yin and yang, the yin is the feminine and the yang is the masculine. It came up very recently, actually, when I watched a podcast by Eckhart Tolle. He spoke extensively on the yin and yang and what that balance and connection and understanding means within you. But he spoke about it on a societal level. So just as I've mentioned all these smaller versions of yin and yang and as they've been presented in history, mythology at least, we go deep into understanding what the masculine and feminine are in our outer world by understanding what they're not first. Now, what Eckhart Tolle mentions in this podcast and why I've specifically brought him into this is we have been moving in an extremely masculine setting, obviously for a very long time, with our way of living, with our way of working, with our way of being. Working in this masculine space, all of these feminine qualities have been disregarded. But now what's happening is that slowly, the masculine is being pulled back by the feminine. There is more awareness into the feminine. But what Eckhart Tolle points out, and what I want to share with you in this, is just as we went from hyper masculine and now we're trying to move back and masculine and feminine balance, there is also an opportunity that we might pull too much to the feminine side. And in so doing, which is simply what's been happening recently, is this extreme political correctness. If you disagree, it's considered hate speech. You don't want to offend someone, and you don't want to hurt someone's feelings by calling them the wrong pronoun or offending them with what you might assume of them, and it might be incorrect. And there's all this walking on eggshells around people that is pulling us deeper into a toxic feminine. The moment we're in a deep yang energy as a nation, And we are slowly now moving into our yin. But it is all about balance. And just as much as we lean too far to the right, we must be aware not to lean too far into the left. I want you to just take this moment to just reflect on your space and reflect on the environment that you put yourself in, and if it calls for your masculine or your feminine side more. As we've grown up, we have gently been pulling more towards the feminine. We have been gently opening up the space for the feminine, which is fantastic. But what my personal reflection in the space is, and what I want to share with you, is how difficult it has been for our emotional intelligence and the maturity that has taken to truly identify what emotion we are feeling, when we're feeling it, and how we can respond to it healthily and properly. As a woman, as a female, we have opportunity to welcome in each emotion and identify each emotion and befriend each emotion as we've experienced it. When I'm in my women's circles and I ask what the women are feeling in the circle, they share with me how they are feeling stressed, they are feeling unheard, they're feeling unseen, they're feeling fear, they're feeling judgment. These are deep, deep emotions. When in my men's circles, when I ask what they are feeling, what emotion they are feeling, it is anger or sadness. Just as the women have had the opportunity in a lot more spaces to go deeper into their emotions, and it's important to understand how difficult it has been for the men growing up to understand their emotions and to be able to acknowledge their emotions in a safe space without being shut down for crying, for expressing correctly, and for feeling what they're feeling through validation and understanding. Men have had to suppress their emotions. What ends up happening in this space is that all they feel is rage. All they feel is the sadness because they haven't had the opportunity to dive deeper into that until recently, until the last few generations that have now been welcomed into the space to truly acknowledge how they're feeling and why they're feeling it and when they are feeling it. By releasing that anger, you're releasing the egoic response to your emotions and the suppression of the feminine, and you're welcoming in the feminine by identifying what those emotions truly mean to you, where you feel them within yourself, and how you can move past them. Let's take a breath there. I'm truly, truly, truly honored to be sharing this with you and to be in this space and to be reliving this moment in that alignment. So thank you so much for listening once again. If you visualize this guy sitting at his desk in his office, grafting, huge walls distracting him, and a woman walking past. This woman not only is distracting him from something he really doesn't want to do anyway, but also being something that looks completely different to him, that possesses different qualities to him, that naturally has an incredible smell and pheromone that's attracting him, that when he looks and he notices this woman of beauty, of difference, he is attracted to her naturally, not for any sexual reason or anything more than just being energetically and visually attracted to her. Now, what they ended up doing in this industrial revolution because of these distractions was that they covered up the woman. They covered her from neck to ankles so that nothing that the woman has that is different from the man would distract the man from their work. So the men ended up going into do not do anything, do not feel anything, do not look anywhere except at your work because we need to build a revolution. While the woman could not be anything without the man. So they started seeking external validation from the man, from what they were wearing, how they were showing themselves, because without the man, they could not do or become anything. So it became this ancestral wound for a female to have to look outwards and to misidentify herself by what the man she is trying to attract is asking of her, while the man is actually not sure of why or what he is attracted to in the woman, because he is only seeing the qualities that he was not allowed to see. He starts seeing the qualities that were forbidden, and it creates this lust, this sexual energy that distracts the man from the true qualities of love, the true qualities of attraction and connectedness, that between the now female and the male, they don't actually have the opportunity to connect correctly because they are in distorted versions of their own truth. With the men's circles and with the women's circles, it's about redefining what the feminine means. It's about putting the crown back on the feminine and letting her get that seat back at the table with the masculine, so they may discuss and confront and exist in harmony, in unity. And that's why these circles were so important to me, because in the women's circles, of course, it is about sharing and opening, and there's a lot of natural empathy and compassion there. But what happens in the women's circles is that all that empathy and compassion is released externally into the masculine world. But there's not that true level of self-love, self-validation, that these genetic codes that we have created over these centuries have formed deep misunderstanding self-love images and identity within ourselves. Through what it means to truly understand that masculine and feminine balance, it's extremely important to understand that everything we give is also what we need for ourselves. Everything that we require and ask for is what we need for our inner world. And that's what this masculine and feminine identity is creating. It's creating that space to really understand what is missing. What I do in my men's circles is I actually work on desexualizing the woman. So what that means is, just as I've expressed in the women's circles, is about giving that self-compassion, that self-love, and giving it back to your inner world. In the men's circles, it's about desexualizing the woman's body so that the men are not distracted by something that they aren't actually attracted to, but are rather focusing on what attracts them to the opposite sex or to the same sex, whichever way their boat flows. And it's in that space of moving away from the sexuality and the fake attractiveness that has been conditioned into them that they truly have the opportunity to build deeper connections and form deeper relationships. That when a friend who might be more in their feminine becomes friends with someone who's more in their masculine, they aren't all of a sudden attracted to one another because the one can hold space for the other's misunderstood emotions, but rather that they can help each other rebalance and realign. There's no external expectation of what this could be and of the sexualized nature that becomes of this connection, but rather they can identify and respect the connection that forms within them. When you think masculine, who or what do you see first? The same for feminine. If you close your eyes and you think of feminine, who or what do you see? Do you see a person? Do you see a thing? Some might see flowers for feminine. Some might see parents as their role models for the masculine and feminine. The identification that we have of the masculine and feminine and how that works within us is directly linked with the role models that we have for a male and a female and who we aspire to be like within each framework. The masculine doesn't mean man, just as feminine doesn't mean woman. Women have a perception of the word masculine, and so do men, of course, based on their experiences with men. For example, if a woman has a negative perception of a male figure, she'll not really welcome the idea of masculinity if she's been in a situation where that assertiveness, that forcefulness, that anger affected her space. Then she'll equate that version of masculinity to the overall version and then suppress it within herself. Or anytime there might be any type of masculine energy around her, she will reject it, she will push it away because she is in a space of protecting her inner world. The masculine is not negative. The divine masculine gives us strength. It gives us our determination, our confidence. The feminine and the masculine energy that is present in all of us is not controlled by the social construct of gender, as I mentioned. It cannot be identified through these foundations that we have as social beings that we've created for each of them. And what we're doing by speaking as openly as I am about this, we are quite literally ripping off those layers of identity and expectations that's been put on the masculine feminine for all these years and re-identifying what they truly mean. The character traits of the masculine and feminine. The main ones that I want to share with you are the feminine and the masculine. The feminine is creative, nurturing, receiving, surrender, empathy, sensuality, affection, patience, sensitivity, and intuitive. Whereas the man has that hard quality. He's wired, he's aware, he's disciplined, independent, focused, logical, driven. These new understandings of the masculine and feminine now, with this in mind, take a moment here to assess which characteristics are more common in your life, to establish right now if you feel that you might be more in your masculine or more in your feminine. Which one do you associate yourself with more from reading these characteristics? Just as we do intend to be in balance with the masculine and feminine consistently, it isn't necessarily always the case, and we are always at a push and pull. There are moments where you feel that you need to be more in your masculine, and there are moments where you feel your feminine will be better suited in the situation. It is important to be able to identify these character traits so that you can healthily and objectively identify which would help best in a situation and work on that push-pull balance. If you look at this feminine, there's nothing on there of erratic, over-emotional. On the masculine, there's nothing about strict, of overprotectedness. But these are the qualities of the toxic masculine feminine that we'll discuss now. So we've now identified, or at least I hope you have identified where you feel you are more aligned currently, in your masculine or in your feminine, especially as we do in our working spaces. As I mentioned, we do tend to lean more into our masculine. Going back to the idea of the sun and the moon being the masculine and the feminine, this gives you a beautiful opportunity to harness the energy of the sun as the masculine and the energy of the moon as the feminine to rebalance yourself after a busy day. For example, if you felt that you might have been extremely in your masculine in the day, which makes sense because the sun is also a huge component in that when the evening comes, you have the opportunity to go inwards, to reflect, to release, and to sit with that dark moon energy in that feminine and balance out your day. It creates a beautiful harmonizing way of working with the sun and the moon, and it also helps you realign with your own inner world. I'm going to be expressing these different character traits and what happens. These, of course, the ones that I've shown here are in the healthy range of what the feminine and masculine would be like if they were in balance and if they were being harnessed correctly. However, if the feminine and the masculine are not in alignment with another, one will be overextended and one will be suppressed. So what I'm going to be expressing now is the dominant version of each and the suppressed version of each and what those entail. A person with a dominant masculine, a suppressed feminine as a result, is more likely persuasive, selfish, ego-driven, which are, again, they're none of those qualities that are there. These are completely separate qualities that we, as how we have understood them now in our society, are the way of the masculine, which is misinformed. The dominant feminine, which is, again, of course, the suppressed masculine, is irrational, easily emotional, and insecure. Do these now make you think of any of the same role models or people or character traits in yourself? Do they make you think of anything more specific? Do they make you think of anyone specific as a toxic version or a dominant version of a masculine or feminine that might be present in you? These now are not the qualities of the divine masculine feminine, as I've said. These are the signs of the unbalanced yin and yang. Neglecting the feminine replaces the true qualities of obedience, of tenderness, and of sensitivity with irrational and emotional behavior, forcing the unbalanced traits of the masculine, which are that irresponsible, rigid state of being, to overpower the individual. So you become full force in the masculine or feminine based on which one's more dominant and suppressed. And if you're not careful, you end up moving more and more into that space and less from that equilibrium. You pull yourself away more. Again, these are not true qualities of each archetype. I do have to say this a lot because this is what we're trying to unlearn. We're trying to unlearn what the qualities currently are and how they move against what are the true understanding of them and how we can balance them within ourselves. The circumstances of effects of these unbalances, the circumstances of the surroundings that you find yourself in are the reason that your masculine or feminine may be suppressed or not. If you find yourself in a space where you need to feel protective, that you need to look after yourself, naturally your masculine will be more prominent and you will stand forward and you will stand strong and you will suppress your feminine because the masculine is the protector. The masculine is the provider. And in your inner world, your masculine will not let your feminine out if it is not safe, if it is not a good enough surrounding for where you are. It is super important. The masculine is considered the instinct. The feminine is considered the intuition. With a balanced masculine, one can develop a logical, deliberating side as well as self-awareness. Meanwhile, when it's lacking, the individual may become selfish, stubborn, and self-seeking. The healthy masculine allows us to step into our truth and be who we are, while the healthy feminine trusts her intuition and lets it guide as she flows with the natural elements. That trust is what is so important in the space, and something that I always use, one of my favorite sayings. But you know, people say, how do you know you can trust someone? But the only way to know that you can trust someone is to just trust them. See what happens, but you have to be able to trust them that first time to figure out if it's going to be good or bad. We work very deeply in the masculine, that the idea of trust and surrender and, you know, giving control over that feminine urge of just releasing and surrendering is very difficult. It's very difficult to give the masculine the wheel, because in our spaces, that trust in the instinct is primarily based on the surroundings that we find ourselves in our outer world. If we are not safe, if we feel that we cannot express ourselves authentically and be vulnerable in the space that we are in comfortably, the feminine won't want to come out, the masculine won't let it, and we won't evolve. We'll be stagnant in the flow of our energy as we move through the space, because there is that constant block. The masculine as the instinct and the feminine as the intuition work on trust. But just like any human experience, once that trust has been broken, it's difficult to rebuild. It creates a wound. Just as if you give someone your trust and they break it, it forms a wound on your heart. This is that same thing. The masculine's main role is to create that safe surrounding for this feminine to reside in. When this trust is broken, it creates a wounded masculine and feminine. This is separate from the toxic masculine feminine, because there is a type of protection that is being created in the space, that we want to feel safe. We want to give safety. We want to be safe. There's always this feeling of safety that is created and constantly in awareness with ourselves. Naturally, the human body, within 1 millisecond, it can scan a room to find out if there were any dangers in it and notice anything that is different, because our bodies are natural creatures. We work with fight or flight. We have cortisol levels that ignite our brain, that keep us active and aware of our surroundings. That this masculine energy is always active. So when the feminine comes out, it trusts in that instinct. It trusts that the masculines looked to the side and noticed the rattlesnake before the feminine comes out. It's got that trust. And the masculine also trusts the intuition of the feminine to be in a safer surrounding, to feel that gut feeling and of what I feel like in that space, and to open up that intuition. This intuition is the feminine, and this intuition is the power that I want to speak about next, is this voice. The intuition is your gut feeling. It's the first voice you hear in your mind, in your heart. It's the voice that will tell you to go to the bathroom before you convince yourself you don't need it and end up dancing around the room later because you didn't go to the bathroom when your body told you to, you needed to. Your intuition is your voice that helps you understand and align your mind, your body, your spirit. But your intuition is the first voice you hear. There is also a second voice. That second voice is always directly opposing the first voice. It is always telling you to do the opposite of what the first voice told you to. Why? Because you don't need to go to the bathroom. You're fine. You're not desperate for the bathroom. Why go now? Why not just go later when you feel like it? Oh yeah, actually that makes sense. I'll do it later. These small actions that are going against the intuition simply just suppress the feminine more. And it's the smallest, most subtle things. It's actually something that my friend Sam, who's on here, hi Sam, we went to a clairvoyant the one day, and she said a way to practice your intuition and welcoming this feminine is to actually choose a buddy. In my case, it was Sam, and text her out of the blue, what color am I wearing right now? What color am I thinking of? And you are in return testing your own intuition, because you're giving your intuition the space to listen, to be heard, and to share accordingly. So we started testing each other on our intuition in that way. I do it a lot with my clients as well, with couples intuition, where your couple, you guys can play like I Spy with my little eye, and you notice something around the room, or even with a friend, it doesn't have to be a couple, but you notice something around your room and you say it starts with the letter E, and the partner playing has to then go around and find this thing with the letter E, focusing on that intuitive feeling. You're welcoming in the space for your intuition, just as I mentioned at the beginning of this. You're opening up the space and giving the microphone to the parts of your body that need it the most. In this case, you're giving the microphone to your intuition. So just gently listen to that first voice and slowly start identifying when the first voice comes up and what the second voice is telling you not to do. Why is it telling you to do something different to what the first voice has told you? And how much are you going to listen to it? So you can start focusing on detaching from which is your intuition and which isn't, and then start slowly following your intuition, going to the bathroom, closing the door, feeling those moments where you know, I should have done that thing that I didn't do, then just flowing with it, opening that space for your intuition to just be and speak to you. When we are in a situation and we are trying, and the feminine is trusting the masculine and vice versa, that flow is going, it's very difficult for that trust to be rebuilt if it has been broken. The trust would be broken, let's say the masculine is, in a space where everything's actually fine and dandy, but it's only fine and dandy because of the surroundings that are accepted in that space now after time and time again. That might necessarily not be a healthy space, but is the way, it's the way of their reality. And the masculine, the wounded masculine, would then call in the feminine into the space for the intuition to show, and the intuition wouldn't be correct. The intuition on the situation would have been read wrong because of the second voice, that the masculine immediately suppresses the feminine again, because how could you lead me astray? How could I trust you? And it'll be difficult for me to listen to my intuition again because of how it led me astray already. So it's difficult to almost come back into that flow and to forgive your wounded feelings on the trust of that breaking of trust. So a huge part of this is that forgiveness. A huge part is being with yourself and showing up for yourself from now onwards, and to forgive whatever happened before that might have broken that trust and might be the reason that you are suppressing your masculine or your feminine. So to bring that into balance is to just forgive that space and to let it be and to breathe through it. Just like the wounds left from trauma, the scar tissue from a broken trust always stays slightly sensitive. It's as if, it's a wound that just keeps opening, and the scar tissue will never, ever, ever fully heal. But with the masculine drive and suppression of the feminine emotion, you can get lost on where you are in that balance, in that harmony. You can get lost on how much you're trying to come back from, because you're working at this first point that you started at. Whereas now, let's say if this is your level of equilibrium for your masculine and your masculine has extended so much higher, but you can't bring it back to meet your feminine here because you think your feminine is left here. And what needs to be understood is that although your masculine is climbing, your feminine is right there with it, climbing with it. All it needs is an invitation. All it needs is a seat at the table. And that's what we're providing it with. We're opening that space. Intuition, what do you have to say? Body, how are you feeling? I'll go through those practices in a little bit. I often share the importance of moving into the heart space, moving from I think head space into I feel heart space. With all of this, and a deep way to welcome in the feminine, a very easy, gentle way, is to catch yourself out when you're thinking and move it to feeling. How do I feel in this space? What am I feeling in my body right now? What does this feeling give me? So just changing the way that you think about what you are experiencing and moving it out of the head space into the heart space is a great way of slowly bringing that seat to the table for the feminine and allowing her to work in you just as fluidly and just as freely as you already let the masculine work in you. The power of these practices lie in the understanding of the characteristics of both the healthy and the toxic or wounded masculine and feminine in order to keep those balances. As you see here in the character traits, we have the healthy character traits of each. The toxic or wounded masculine feminines are the misunderstood versions and the ones we are trying to change. The wounded or toxic masculine are these outwardly orientated aspects of your outer world that I've been expressing, your surrounding. When we feel uncertain, when we feel threatened or betrayed or anxious, we may feel rejected or unwanted because you're rejecting your own feeling nature. You're not giving yourself the opportunity to acknowledge your feelings. It happens a lot in situations where, you want to cry, but you're in a crowd of people, so you hold it in. You're like, I'm not going to cry now, I'll just do it later. Or, you want to feel an emotion, but there's something stopping you from feeling it, so you suppress that emotion. That is that rejection of your own feeling nature. It's your rejection of your masculine. The rejection is the masculine. You'd say no, you're suppressing the feminine. And then finally, the wounded masculine also creates and makes choices based on others' expectations of them. They want to please others and get the praise from others because of that masculine wound, because of what it means to get that praise, what it means to the people that they love, people that they are asking of them, that they fall in this wounded masculine because of that scar that's already there. It is the part of us, this healthy masculine, that makes it possible to act on what is meaningful to us, truly meaningful, because we have that confidence in ourselves. What makes us our own person. The masculine, the healthy masculine, gives us our autonomy. It helps us distinguish between what others want for us and what we actually need for our own growth, and allows us confidence to choose correctly. We can feel more confident in ourselves because we know what we want for ourselves, because we are presently in our bodies and we respect how that makes us feel. The masculine energy and the healthy masculine is believing in yourself. It's being true to yourself. It's speaking your truth, being in your authenticity, acting on healthy instincts. When you give yourself and others permission to be authentic, you're creating that safe surrounding for yourself and for the feminine to enter. This comparison that I've given you of the toxic masculine and feminine here is the same for the toxic and wounded masculine, is the same for the toxic and the wounded feminine. These characteristics, as you can see just from that masculine section, is so interesting to how we understand masculinity currently, to how different and how motivating masculinity truly is within us and for us. That toxic feminine either can't feel or won't listen to her instincts about people and situations, the instincts being the masculine, because of that distrust, right? She is sensitive, emotional, erratic, seeking external validation and praise, as we discussed. There's a lot of pulling at the external for things that are already internally validated. Our self-compassion, our love, our empathy. The healthy feminine is compassionate, it's nurturing, it's emotional, intelligent, and it's intuitive. It's being interested in what other people feel, not just what they can offer, and being present in that space with them, that genuine connection, that eye contact, that energetic exchange. What these characteristics are highlighting is that both men and women experience the same emotions and fears. It is not only one gender that goes through this, because it is not only one gender that experiences this imbalance. The masculine and feminine play a role in the energetic flow of your inner world and your outer world. It is important to understand each characteristic so that you can go deeper into your self-discovery. This is done by setting boundaries that honor your growth, setting boundaries in your surrounding space of your outer world and of your inner world, setting boundaries in your self-knowledge and self-talk is also extremely important in this space. That you honor your growth, you're appreciating and giving attention to that which has meaning to you. You're trusting yourself to act off instinct, that masculine, and you're allowing yourself, you're giving yourself permission to become your authentic self alone and then around others, because you trust in what that authentic self is offering and bringing to the table. Realigning the masculine and feminine is about bringing one into perfect harmony with the other, the yin and the yang. Too much of either side creates an overpowering expression and misinterpretation, as we've established from this wounded or toxic masculine and feminine. By understanding these traits, we can work on intentional flow from a present state of consciousness. Which there was a study done, this gentleman went to the physio, and all of his injuries were on the right side of his body. He went to a physio who happened to go deep into Ayurvedic principles. It's a beautiful way of understanding your body and what it needs, when it needs it, and why it's coming up, and actually truly giving your body the space to speak and allowing yourself the time to listen to your body. So the physio that he went to had a lot of understanding of these Ayurvedic principles. And when he found out all these injuries were on the right hand side, the first thing he mentioned was, do you know that your right hand side is in fact your masculine side? And that's the side that you say is hurting. Why could it be hurting on your masculine side? As we're going in this, I'll explain it more, but the right hand side is your masculine, your left hand side is your feminine. And as I was sharing earlier about your body sharing and speaking to you and giving you information in this way, it also speaks to you that much that if your right hand side is hurting, it's your masculine. If it's your left hand side, it's your feminine. And there are ways in this to truly understand why the body is calling you into your masculine and feminine specifically. He then goes on and speaks further about a poor sense of self-worth that he experiences, that he has, that he says contributes to his being in his masculine, that he is constantly trying to prove himself and chasing praise and approval, that he would parade these masculine traits and push for success, because that's what the masculine was to him. That's how he understood it. So from all this pushing and working in the masculine energy, his right side of his body started hurting. He then says, and I wanted to actually quote this, he says, I slowly started to come to terms with the more feminine traits that are naturally a part of who I am. By opening up the space for the feminine, that self-compassion and gentleness emerged. That gentleness for the self-compassion in holding space for yourself. He began accepting his feminine qualities, shifting from seeing his sensitivity as something shameful to something of value, which through this feminine realignment, he was able to reflect and release. And he says, I learned that it is okay to receive, to ask for help, and not have to do everything on my own. Those, because of the feminine qualities of being able to reflect and release, he had the opportunity to go into what his real concerns were. He said afterwards, his body started healing because he took a moment. He went inward and he realigned himself. The suppression of the feminine is the main theme that I want to highlight tonight. In men's and women's circles, similar things are spoken and shared about. We all talk about how we're feeling, and as you have identified from the space now, I'm sure, regardless of if you are man or female, you have experienced all of those characteristic traits, whether it be wounded or healed. I know I personally have. Women express deeper emotions, of course, and they can identify more because they were given this capacity to feel and identify more. But where we are in a space now, we are creating that motion of I feel. We're taking away that I think. And we're slowly bringing that back into the spaces where, by releasing that sadness and anger that we might have already experienced, we have the opportunities to really feel again and to release the emotions that we are holding from others that aren't ours. We can feel and identify emotions and how we react to them, because we can identify which are ours and which don't belong to us and are in fact others. But it's all by starting with this reconnection. But the final thing that I will be speaking to you about now is how to truly understand when the feminine or masculine needs healing and where to start. Where do we go with all of this? What is the point in me sharing all this information with you? Because of course, I don't want to overload you with too much, and I do want to keep this as short as possible, but I really think this is important information. When you're in the space, when we are feeling numb, when we don't know what we feel, or we have so much unresolved emotion that we can't find our way to clear intuition, we become overwhelmed, we become anxious, we start focusing so much on the future and on what ifs that we lose track of where we are in our present state of being. Our nervous system becomes imbalanced, our cortisol levels rise, we move out of the space of ease, of comfort, of presence, and we move into the state of that toxic masculine, focusing on the things we can't control so that we can fall deeper into the wound. Now, as I mentioned, when identifying these things, it's important that you identify that, or you notice that because one is heightened, the other is suppressed. So instead of working on the one that is heightened, it's important to rather welcome in the one that might be suppressed. To look at your surroundings and notice what is making you feel more in either archetype. What around you is making you more in your feminine or more in your masculine, and why is that calling you into that space? Do you feel safe in your space? Are you comfortable? Are you being your most authentic self in that space that maybe is realigning the balance for you? And finally, do you trust those that are surrounding you, that are in your space, for your feminine and masculine to dance freely? It's important during this space and in these activities that I'm going to share with you now, that you listen to your body and what it may be telling you. Going into the final part of this Masterclass is sharing different practices and activities that you can do to welcome in your masculine and feminine and to help work and exercise on both respectively. The masculine activities is for, of course, when you feel that the feminine is taking over, that you're feeling maybe, as we mentioned, over erratic, over emotional, overreactive, very much heightened in your space and energy on your internal world. The masculine activities that you can do include instinct and body activation with high intensity exercises, increasing your heart rate, reconnecting yourself to your body, whether it be with a run, whether it be with muscle training, that reconnection to that body. There's also some beautiful deep breath work that can reconnect you into your masculine. Another great way for masculine activities is actually weight training and body reconnection. So that was the activation of the body. This is the reconnection of the body. To check in with your body and to actually take a moment every morning and every night to see how you feel in your body and where your emotions are lying in your body and how you can move that flow and let that happen. Then there's renaturalizing the body, regrounding practices to make you feel safe in your body. As I mentioned, the breathwork, yoga is also an incredible one. Meditation is also an incredible one to reground yourself and bring you back. And finally, healthy anger releases. These include shaking, body shaking, and releasing that energy, releasing that anger, all very important and very good. Feminine activities include a lot of feeling pleasure in your body. As I mentioned earlier, it's that feeling comfortable and safe in your own space. The regrounding practices to make you feel safe in your body. Those include creation, painting, drawing, building, doing things with your hands, dancing, hard chilling. Sometimes our hormones just ask us to chill, and it's important as that feminine that you chill without feeling any pressure on just chilling, that you can chill and you can relax your mind and your heart in that moment and be fully present in that relaxation. A final one is also walking in nature. It's called nature baths. I always recommend to my clients going into nature and having a moment to reconnect to the sounds around you, to activate your senses, even if it means, of course, some of us aren't as blessed to walk in forests and lakes around us, but even if it just means walking in the streets and activating your 5 senses to what you can hear, see, feel, taste, and smell around you, what is in your surrounding as you're walking, and you become conscious of the natural elements that play with you. That's a beautiful way to reconnect to Mother Earth, reconnect your relationship to your feminine. With these archetypes in balance, one is able to step into their true power and believe in their natural instincts, with the masculine working on the outward expression of self, while the feminine works with the inner details. We are able to move freely between our internal and external narratives, releasing any self-doubt and walking rather in confidence in ourselves. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is my main intention for re-welcoming the feminine a seat at the table and letting them be brother and sister again and dance together and work together in that yin and yang, in that space of connection, so that they may create a better world for all who live in it. Thank you so much for your time and for being here, and I open up the floor to any questions that you might have. Yeah, to close off while we do wait for questions, I truly just want to say thank you for being here, for your time and your presence, being able to truly acknowledge where we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it in this space and what it means for our overall self is truly important in the space that we are creating for our future. So I really appreciate the time and the interest and the questions and the understanding and the presence that you have given me, and I hope to see you soon. I'll be doing a masterclass like this most likely once a month. The next one will go deeper into the masculine and the feminine separately. And my intention behind it is to actually create spaces They're called together circles, where yes, I hold my men's and women's circles and go deeper into their own truths, but because I'm sharing the same knowledge in both circles, this virtual world creates a space where we can all be together and share our energies and share the space honestly and openly with one another. I'm very excited for the start of that. So with all of that being said, thank you so much everyone for joining. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. As I mentioned, you've given the microphone to the masculine and the feminine now. So it's important to just give them the opportunity to speak and to listen and to forgive and to be gentle with yourself and let all of that flow naturally. Please feel free to reach out. Please feel free to ask any questions that might come up. My door is always open to you, and thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a beautiful evening. I'm sending you love and blessings. Thank you so much.